Star Wars 7 by 7 episode 2328. Happy Life Day to you. For the 40th anniversary occasion of the Star Wars Holiday Special back in 2018, I was thrilled to interview Bruce Vilanch, one of the writers on the Holiday Special, and today I am resurfacing that interview for you here, part 1 of 2. Punch it! And I am very excited to be sharing the next couple of days here with you because our guest on the show is none other than Bruce Vilanch, a 6-time Emmy Award-winning writer, a playwright, comedy writer, songwriter, was the head writer for 15 years for the Oscar telecasts and 25 years overall. And in the beginning of his career, he was working on a variety of variety shows. And of course, one of those was the ill-fated Star Wars Holiday Special. And that's what we're going to be talking about on this portion of the interview. I was interviewing him from my little retreat in Maine, and the audio conference line did not necessarily hold up as well as I would have hoped. So my apologies that we are not getting utterly crystal clear sound for this particular interview, but I don't think it will cause you any difficulty in hearing everything that Bruce Vilanch has to say about his early experiences with Star Wars and getting into the Star Wars Holiday Special. I hope you enjoy it.
I have Bruce Vilanch on the line. Bruce, thank you so much for joining me on the show. How are you today?
Delightful. I'm luscious. I'm all of those things.
I
have no sell-by date, so take advantage of me now.
Oh, believe me, I plan to. I want to talk to you about a lot of different things, but we're going to mostly limit it to the Star Wars Holiday Special. And let's just start with this. First of all, had you seen Star Wars before you worked on the Holiday Special? Like, what was your, opinion of it at the time?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it was huge, I mean, it was a blockbuster. I'd seen it actually at a screening at the Writers Guild in Hollywood. It was so long ago. It was the old Writers Guild Theater, and I remember it was packed because there was word on the street that this was going to be big. Although I don't think they really thought it was going to be as big as it was, but they thought it was going to be like a summer picture that everybody had to see, and especially the younger generation. And Hollywood is always about finding out what the youth want. It has been since the studio system broke up because young people go to the movies. So we all flocked to see the thing, and it was fun. It was like I remember thinking it was kind of like when I was a kid. There was a tail end of the tradition of going to the movies on Saturday. Saturday matinee was kids' matinee. And there was always an Abbott and Costello picture or some kind of Martin and Lewis, something like that. And there were a lot of things that accompanied it. And one of them was the Republic serials, and they were stories that they were serials. I mean, you went back every Saturday to catch up. Every episode was a cliffhanger, and a lot of them were spacey. There was Buck Rogers in the 21st Century, and Captain Video and things like that. And Star Wars reminded me a lot of those. There were Indiana Jones was actually taken from one of those things. It was totally inspired by the Republic series. So I thought this was like a Republic serial blown up to CinemaScope and special effects and all that. And it had all of those weird characters and everybody spouting aphorisms. And so it was very enjoyable. And then it was over, and I went outside, and there were all these people milling on the sidewalk. And I was young, and they were grabbing me going, "What was that? What did we just see?" They couldn't figure out why there was buzz on this movie, because to them it was kind of like some kind of crap, but in Technicolor. And then, of course, it opened, and it became a cult thing immediately, but in a way that nothing had been cult before. I mean, it was mobs of people lined up to see it, and in costume already, and it was a genuine phenomenon. It wasn't the first blockbuster. I mean, Jaws was like the first kind of blockbuster that opened in a lot of theaters and you couldn't escape. I mean, this was in that tradition, if there was a tradition already. But so I remember thinking, well, this is a lot of fun, and who knows what's going to happen with it. And then, of course, it wound up becoming a franchise. But I got involved in it, but in between those two, I mean, the second movie, Empire Strikes Back, was in the works and was shot and done, and the holiday special happened as a kind of stopgap is the wrong word, but it was kind of like a fuel injection for the franchise for the year off between the movies, and or 2 years off, however long it was before they got the Empire out there, and it was designed to keep interest in the franchise because it hadn't really established itself as a franchise yet. There had only been one movie.
So were you then surprised, your agent calls you up and says, hey, you're doing a great job with the Bette Midler stuff and the Donnie and Marie show, and I got something new for you. Work on a Star Wars holiday special.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised because I was doing a lot of variety, and variety was all over the place. I mean, you never knew exactly what kind of thing you were going to be doing. And this one was considered off the wall. Nobody knew exactly what it was. And I was considered off the wall. Nobody knew exactly what I was. What? They weren't exactly, well, I knew certain things that I was, but when I'd gotten out to Hollywood in 1975, I had come with the Manhattan Transfer, which was an unusual act, and we did a summer variety series. And then I was writing for all kinds of very hip types, and so whenever anybody was doing anything unusual in the variety area, I would get called in frequently. So it didn't surprise me because it surprised me that they were actually doing this show, because my initial reaction was, how are they going to marry Star Wars to variety television? I mean, and I assumed because they said, look, George Lucas has this idea. I thought, okay, if George Lucas has an idea, then he knows what it's going to be. And it will be interesting. God knows it was.
Well, yeah, like the Chinese curse, I guess, about living in interesting times.
Well, I think he didn't realize what he was getting into. I think that he sold it, and he looked at it, I believe, initially purely from the commercial side of things, about this will keep the characters going and this will keep the fans happy. And I don't think he ever realized exactly what the network was going to require for this show. And I think that's probably because he didn't watch a lot of television, is my guess. I don't know that. But I would just think if he had was schooled in what was going on, he would have seen all of the warning signs. But that wasn't his world. Yeah, that truly wasn't his world. He was a film guy, and the Star Wars references were filmic references, like the Republic serials and the science fiction things that he had seen in movies, as in theaters. They were not. You didn't really see them on television much. Because I'm sure that guys like George didn't want to watch them on TV because they were cut up and they were commercials and violating all the principles of the auteur theory.
Right, and even when he was growing up, television was probably later in coming, comparatively speaking.
Yeah, I mean, he's older than I am, so yes. Short answer, yes.
So were you in on it from the beginning? I mean, I know that Pat Proft and Leonard Rips, I believe it is, had been working on Shields and Yarnell, the mime thing. So I figured that they must have been in on it comparatively from the beginning.
Yeah, I think we all were. We all came in. Rod Warren and Lenny and Pat. I think we all came in at the beginning. I think that later on, when it became clear that there were going to be original musical numbers, Ken and Mitzi Welch were brought in, and they had a production company with Joe Layton, who was a great friend of mine, a Broadway director, choreographer, and I worked on several things, a big Bette Midler show on Broadway with him. And he came in. At that point, I think George had kind of left because he brought a director down, David Akumba from Toronto, who he was very fond of, and he was a film director, and and there was it didn't work out. It did work out, and he was replaced by Steve Binder, who was a big variety show director. And I think at that point, George just kind of backed away from it because he realized that it wasn't what he had envisioned it as being. And the disowning began.
And there was no stopping the train at that point, I gather.
Well, no, but you have to remember that even after it aired 40 years ago, a thing like that would just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
There would be no reason to rerun it. And once it had gone through the initial airing and suffered the slings and arrows, it would just never be seen again. And then this thing called the Internet happened. And suddenly there were tapes of it, and people who had grown up watching the first 3 Star Wars movies on video discovered this thing, and they said, what the? How did this happen? And, of course, they directed their initial ire at George because they couldn't understand how he could betray his own vision, which is how they put it. And, we all began getting hate mail. And the minute they could find us, they would – oh, yeah, the minute they would find us, they would start sending us stuff in the mail. They would start emailing and doing all this kind of – I mean, even before there was actual email, when it was just the Internet. As soon as social media occurred, which, I mean, it wasn't even social media. It was just email. We began getting horrified things from totally betrayed, bereaved people. And what I found ironic was these are people who had never actually seen a Star Wars movie in the theater. They'd grown up, their parents had, but they had grown up watching the whole thing on VHS. I mean, not even DVD, VHS.
So is there something that you can point to that you contributed to this thing that you can say that you're particularly proud of? And I know I say that with a little bit of incredulity, but I mean it genuinely. Like, is there anything awesome that you look at and go, you know what, this was great?
I would love to say that I could remember one of those things. But I suggested B. Arthur. Mm-hmm. She was a friend of mine, and I knew that she wanted to sing on television because she was Maude at the time, which was very big. But she had come from Broadway. She had come from the original cast of Fiddler on the Roof, where she was the first Yenta the Matchmaker, and the original cast of Mame, where she was Vera Charles. And she had won Tonys, and she had sung, and she wanted to do a number. Nobody would ever let her do a number. So this was how we got her. We got her to do a number with the aliens.
The number.
There would be a number in the can't see it. I don't know what else. I mean, I think I came up with Harvey Korman as Julia Child, an alien Julia Child cooking with 8 arms. Mm-hmm. I think that was mine. But I'm really, on those things I'm dim because so much came and went. I mean, and there were so many chefs that I honestly can't remember. I'd have to sit down and look at it and say, oh yeah, that was my joke, which I haven't done in years.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody paid me enough, I would sit down and look at it, and I would deconstruct it. I'd parse like a king. Yeah.
That I think would be. I would pay to watch that actually. Maybe for the 50th anniversary. How about that?
All right, I'm available.
All right, that seems like a momentous enough occasion to make it happen.
A reason to live.
Yes. Is there do you have a sense of a moment then, going the other way, where you realize this is not going to go the way we hoped it would go?
Not well. We knew it was. We just knew it was something strange and exotic, and it was 1977, and we were all chemically altered. I mean, we were stoned a lot of the time, and so a lot of the stuff seemed reasonable, or if it didn't seem reasonable, we could convince ourselves it was trippy, and that the audience was going to get a kick. They were going to go on a trip with us, and it was some of it was just like how else do you explain it? I mean, George had come up with this brilliant and prescient idea of virtual reality, where he had the Wookiees wearing helmets that plugged into their brains and their fantasy would appear. Mm-hmm. And so each one of them put on a helmet, and one of them, the little kid Wookiees' fantasy was Cirque du Soleil. It was their first television appearance. And of course now, there are all these experiments with virtual reality where they do exactly that, and then maybe the next wave of stuff. But that was what George was doing back then. So that was, interesting. There was a hologram sequence. Those were new. I mean, he'd used them in Star Wars, but having Diane Carroll in a hologram, doing a number in Jefferson Starship, and it was that mashup of stuff which nobody had done, and we thought this could be fabulous. This could be something that nobody has done before, or it just could be a gigantic pile. And there was no way of knowing. But our default position was, it's trippy. It's very trippy. It's happening. It's like, it's today.
All right, we're going to pause it right there, and we will have the second half of our interview with Bruce Vilanch on tomorrow's episode. In the meantime, if you happen to be anywhere near Wilmington, Delaware, then I encourage you to check out the Delaware Theater Company production of A Sign of the Times, which is a new musical that has a book written by Bruce Vilanch, and it may very well be headed to Broadway. So now would be a great time to catch it before it gets there and gets super expensive to check out. It is running through the end of December, so do check out A Sign of the Times. And thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you will subscribe to the show to get future updates, and I hope you'll consider supporting this daily dose of Star Wars joy at patreon.com/SW7X7. For now, though, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2020 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.